everyone, my name is Melissa Ashman and I recently completed my Doctor of Education in Distance Education at Athabasca University. I'm so sorry not to be able to join you all in person at the workshop, but I'm grateful for this opportunity to share with you my research through this video presentation. I live in Richmond, British Columbia, Canada, which is the traditional, ancestral, and unceded lands of the Musqueam First Nation. In this photo, you can see the coastal mountain range in the background and the meeting of the Fraser River with the Pacific Ocean. This area was once the location of seasonal fishing camps for the Musqueam. The Coast Salish name for the area is Spalaquex, and the colonial name is Terra Nova. Giving a land acknowledgement is one small way in which I, as an educator and as a citizen of what is now called Canada, enact truth, reconciliation, and decolonization. I believe it's important that I situate myself and my research in the broader historical and geopolitical context. While this is important, full stop, it becomes particularly important given that my research was at the intersection of open pedagogy, social justice, and online classes. It's often assumed that open education, by virtue of improving access to education, automatically supports social justice, but this is not necessarily the case, as several researchers have pointed out. As well, online learning can improve students' access to education because of the flexibility in when and where to learn that is possible, but researchers have described how the online environment can, in fact, be a site of social injustice for historically marginalized students. As a result, several researchers have concluded that using open pedagogy in an online course to support social justice requires intentionality on the part of the instructor. Otherwise, there is a risk that some of the characteristics of open pedagogy, such as collaboration or engaging with audiences outside of the classroom, could have negative impacts on historically marginalized students if faculty members do not take measures to mitigate that potential. The purpose of my study was to explore the experiences of faculty members who teach online using open pedagogy to support social justice. From a critical theory perspective and using interpretive phenomenology, I investigated how these faculty members conceptualize social justice, how they operationalize it using open pedagogy, and what strategies and approaches they use to develop their social justice leadership. I had a lot of data from my study, and I cannot report on it all in the time that I have here. Instead, I'm going to report on how the faculty members defined social justice and how they operationalized it by using open pedagogy. If you'd like to read my full dissertation, please get your phone ready to scan the QR code that will be available on screen at the end of my presentation. For the purposes of this study, I used the definition of open pedagogy presented by Hegarty, and which is visually presented in the graphic on this slide. I used the definition of social justice presented by Fraser, which is parity of participation. The context of my study was Kwantlen Polytechnic University, which is a post-secondary institution located in the Lower Mainland of British Columbia, Canada. It's also the institution at which I teach. I used purposive sampling to recruit 7 participants who engaged in 2 rounds of semi-structured interviews that I recorded and transcribed. I used in vivo and then iteratively coded the transcripts. My goal was not to generalize the experiences of faculty members and was instead to create highly contextualized and thick descriptions of the experiences of these specific faculty members. There were 46 group experiential themes, which I will shorten to GETs, G-E-T, resulting from my research. GETs 1 to 3 related to the first research question, GETs 4 to 34 related to the second research question, and GETs 35 to 46 related to my third research question. As mentioned, I will only be discussing some of my results today. Let's start with answering the first research question. Faculty members conceptualize social justice in a variety of ways, primarily focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion of identities, as well as removing systemic barriers. This included a focus on gender, sexuality, race, indigenous perspectives and decolonization, disability and accessibility, and local contexts. However, some faculty members also included additional aspects such as the environment or sustainability. Importantly, the faculty members believed that supporting social justice involved more than simply using open pedagogy, and they recognized that supporting social justice is both ongoing and done in many ways. There were several notable things about these results. The faculty members in my study did not all conceptualize social justice in the same way, though there were some commonalities. While all the participants were able to articulate how they conceptualize social justice, at least one of my participants had difficulty in doing so. All of my participants were enthusiastic about supporting social justice. Their conceptualizations of social justice to mean equity, diversity, and inclusion of people's identities across a variety of categories, as well as the elimination of systemic barriers, was common amongst the participants. However, there were some participants who included additional elements such as the environment and sustainability and ethics, which diverges from Fraser's definition. It's possible that times have simply changed, such that some aspects of climate destabilization, sustainability, and environmental ethics were not part of the vernacular in a prominent way 20 plus years ago, and that perhaps now there is more recognition that the environment is part of the identity of Indigenous peoples, such that social justice cannot be separated from environmental or climate justice. Let's move on to research question number 2. Faculty members center student voices, diverse perspectives, and learner agency in using open pedagogy in their online classes to support social justice. They believe that using open pedagogy to support social justice shifts the power dynamics in online classes, allowing for more pedagogical creativity and innovation, and can be done in a variety of ways. Despite some risks that faculty members felt in using open pedagogy to support social justice, they persisted in using this approach and they felt positive about doing so. However, there were opportunities for the instructors to strengthen and improve their support of social justice. For example, using open pedagogy in support of social justice is influenced by the modality, but the details were not always clear. Open pedagogy and social justice overlap such that open pedagogy could be used in ways that do not actually support social justice. Though the faculty members were intentional in using open pedagogy to support social justice, this did not necessarily translate to telling students directly and explicitly about doing so. One of the results of my study was that though open pedagogy aspires to support social justice, it must be intentional. While open pedagogy may strive to subvert the banking model of education, it is necessary to make this more explicit and direct because studies have shown that there are ways to engage in open pedagogy that do not support social justice. Though I used the 8 attributes model of open pedagogy developed by Hegarty to guide my study, I found that there was opportunity to directly and explicitly embed social justice. The figure on the right side of this slide is informed by my research data and interpretations. In this social justice model of open pedagogy, learner generated is replaced by learner agency. As well, I have added a 9th attribute, which is social justice, and this attribute, along with learner agency, become the foundation of open pedagogy. Though I have not addressed it in my presentation here today, the attributes of peer review and participatory technology are demarcated as being optional, which is also based on the results of my study. This model could be helpful as it could allow instructors to cross-check and verify that they are not unintentionally perpetuating marginalizing teaching practices while using open pedagogy to support social justice. These are but some of the results of my research. For full details, including a discussion of all of the themes from my study, the limitations of my study, and future considerations and directions, please scan the QR code that is now available on screen. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to email me at the address shown on screen. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful time at the workshop.